Welcome to Ear Biscuits, the podcast where two lifelong friends talk about life for a long time. I'm Rhett.
And I'm Link. This week at the Round Table of Dim Lighting, I finally get to hear about your spring break epic road trip with your oldest son. You did the long way around, just in America, like a few months back. You went from North Carolina back here to California on a you and Locke road trip.
And now I've done the long way down from Maine to Miami.
Yeah. Shout out to you and McGregor. You weren't on motorbikes like you and McGregor.
And Apple was not interested in documenting it.
No. And you're gonna document it now auditorially for me. There's been a number of times we've gotten together with friends and they've asked you about your trip, and I really appreciate the fact that you completely shut them down.
Yeah, because I was in the room. I'm not gonna tell you about it.
Yeah, he's like, you'll have to listen to my podcast.
I have a podcast. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to tell you about it.
So you preserved this experience for me.
It's gonna take a while.
As well as you.
There's a lot of details.
All right, well, let's get into it.
But I do also want to remind you that our television show, yes, we have one of those, Inside Eats with Rhett and Link.
Yes.
Remember, it premieres on Sunday, April 24th, this coming Sunday, as you're listening to this, if it's fresh. 10:30 p.m. on Food Network. It's also on Discovery Plus, and the version on Discovery Plus has extra scenes in it because you don't have to abide by any rules.
Eat it up.
On streaming.
Inside Eats with Rhett and Link. Our show is premiering. I'm excited.
Yeah.
This coming Sunday. All right, tell me about your thing, man. This is ambitious. I like it conceptually. You know?
Well, you know, the funny thing is that
Maine to Miami?
I didn't have any road trips planned at the end of 2021. The first road trip that I talked about last time was a complete just circumstantial thing of kind of being forced into it in a sense. And we had such a great time that initially we wanted to go to Locke and I wanted to do spring break trip like in Japan. But then that didn't happen, and then everything got slowly pared back to just remaining in the United States. And it was like, oh, let's go to Maine, and then let's go to Maine turned into, well, there's a college in New York City that I'm interested in. So that turned into Maine to New York, turned into, well, we got that new cabin in North Carolina. If you hear a little rattling, Barbara is walking around. Her I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but just don't be alarmed. It's not like.
It's not your chains.
My dentures are not about to fall out. It's Barbara. And also, we got the place in North Carolina, so then it turned into Maine to North Carolina, and then Locke was like, well, what about that school in Miami that I'm interested in that I'd like to look at? So that turned into Maine to Miami, and I also like the alliteration of the Maine to Miami McLaughlin Marathon.
Oh.
And so we just went with it, man.
So you ran? Yeah,
it was all on foot. Actually, all on skateboard.
How many days total was this trip? Just to kind of set the parameters.
7 days. So 7 days less mileage than going from North Carolina to California, and more days. So we did North Carolina to California in 5 days. We did Maine to Miami in 7 days. Barbara, you're gonna have to settle down.
Just take her collar off.
Here, I'm gonna take her other collar off.
Come here. She's gonna make you come to her. I've been to Maine once. We shot a music video, I Wanna Be Your Main Man, in 2008. That was fun. Fake beards, just a few hours there. Ate my first lobster roll. I've been to Miami twice, I think. We did some night swimming when we shot the big box store part of the epic rap battle, Nerd vs. Geek. That was shot in a Miami.
And there's a little throwback to that trip.
Build.com box store.
So, flew into Portland, Maine. That was, originally we were gonna fly into like the northern part of Maine because it was gonna be Maine, but then when you're trying to just get across the country, you fly to the southern part of Maine, which is also like the airport that you can fly to from, there's no direct flights from Los Angeles to Portland. There's a connection in Charlotte. But because of the time change, we got in, and basically the only thing we had time to do was go to the hotel to kind of just like, let's settle down and go to sleep and get ready for the next day. But let me tell you, right off the bat, I had something that I was like, well, dang, this is gonna be quite a trip. Because we get to our hotel, and again, this is Locke and me. Locke is 18. He doesn't look 18. He has somewhat of a beard. You know, he is mistaken often. He
could be in his 20s, yeah, mid-20s.
Yeah, so he seems like he's in his 20s. I'm 44, and I like to think that most people don't realize that I'm that old. So when you see us together, you don't immediately, apparently, think father and son.
Okay.
Maybe you do. I don't know. And as I tell you this story, you'll have to interpret what this person interpreted us to be. We get on the elevator.
I think I would interpret you as young pop star and a manager.
Oh, and I'm the pop star.
No.
And so we get on the elevator to go to our room, and a approximately 25-year-old woman gets onto the elevator, and it's just the three of us on the elevator. And no lie, so she looks at us, and she looks, I'll just be honest, she looks mostly at Locke. Okay, she looks mostly at Locke. I'm just gonna be honest. But she looks at both of us. She seems to be interpreting us as a set. And she says, before the elevator door closes, like as the elevator door closes, she says, how long are you guys here? And I said, one night, not really knowing where this was going.
I'm gonna stand here one night.
And then she said, we should hang out.
What?
We should hang out. And I was like, whoa, the women in Maine, they've been cooped up. The boys from California show up, and how long you gonna be here?
So
they come on strong.
What'd y'all do?
I guess it's in the lobster. I mean, shellfish is an aphrodisiac. So apparently, it is something in the diet. But I spoke up and said, well, actually, we were gonna go. It was it wasn't the Final Four yet. It was the weekend. It was the Elite Eight, and there was a game on, and we wanted to watch it because we both care about that. And then I was like, we got to watch basketball. I was just like, what's the unsexiest thing that I can say right now? We got to watch basketball. You know, I wasn't gonna like embarrass her.
I don't know.
Like,
maybe I need to pop my back zits.
I'm his dad.
Less sexy.
Like I'm his dad. I could have just said that. But I decided not to because maybe she would be like, "Oh, I knew that." I don't know. Is this a Maine woman that's high on oysters?
She probably would have just said, "I was talking to him."
Well, she didn't say that.
I know. I'm gonna bring you down a notch.
As I stated from the beginning, she was definitely directing most of this at Locke. So I was like, "This is gonna be an interesting trip. If this is any indication of what we have in store for us." Thankfully, we were not hit on by any more women, so I can go ahead and give you that spoiler alert. But that next morning we wake up, and the plan is to spend some time in Portland, and specifically kind of walk around the old port area, which is like cobblestone streets, like the mainiest part of Portland, Maine. And I had actually gotten to know somebody just like 2 weeks ago out here who has a place in Maine and is from Maine and had all these recommendations. And I was like, well, the main thing I'm trying to do in Maine is get the best lobster roll. I've had a lobster roll or two in Maine before the first time we went, but like, what, in your opinion, as a local, is the best lobster roll? And he was like, Eventide in Portland. So I was like, okay, well.
You have your mission.
And he was like, he also gave a couple of other recommendations. They're like, there's a bakery that everybody wants to go to for a cup of coffee and some bread or whatever, and a little pastry.
Whatever. But just tell me about Eventide.
But the plan was, I kind of wanted to get on the road because I had a relatively tight agenda, meaning that there was a destination every single night because there was a hotel reservation. So unlike the previous trip, which was thrown together a little bit more last minute, and we used like hotels tonight to figure out where we were gonna stay in that first trip. This one was like, I actually want to curate my hotel experience. And I don't know exactly what we're gonna do during the day every day, but we just gotta get to these destinations. So we had some place to get, and originally my plan was to just spend a little time in Portland and then get on the road to Boston, then eventually Rhode Island to spend the night. But when he was like, you gotta eat at Eventide, I was like, well, it opens at 11. So we're gonna have to like walk around and kill some time in Portland and get a brunch lobster roll. So first of all, Maine is everything that you want it to be. You know, it's
quaint.
It's beautiful, it's quaint, there's a coolness in the air. It was actually too cold for me, and I didn't bring a heavy enough jacket. But I got through it, I survived. But we get to Eventide, and I think it's called Eventide Oyster Company. So we did get some oysters. And like the woman was like, this place was like this wasn't like a hole in the wall. This was like a hipster nice place. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this community has got some like really nice, it's like some place you'd see in LA in terms of like, they know exactly what they're doing with the design of the place. It's not like an old school place maybe it's been around for a long time, but it has the feel of like a new trendy place, but just it has this reputation, and I like Yelp and everything else confirm that this is the place to get your lobster roll. So the oysters are great, talking about where they're at in the different bays of Maine or whatever. Okay. And then they bring out the lobster roll. And by the way, there was a Mythical Beast fan in the back in the kitchen, which made me feel good. Like I wasn't gonna be poisoned. We ended up getting like a free cookie.
Okay.
Which was very good.
Take what you can get, man.
But this lobster roll was about this big, and that's about
short.
4 inches. Okay. Don't get any wrong ideas. This is only 4 inches.
Seems dinky.
And and $21.
Whoa, is it piled high or something?
It is piled high. I have a picture of it that they're probably seeing right now if you're watching on video. I'm not gonna show you pictures because I haven't organized it. This lobster roll was exquisite. Now, you know I like lobster rolls.
Was it crunchy or soft?
The bun was soft in this like wonderful way. I don't even know what kind of bread it was.
Okay.
And it was the brown butter, like warm kind, right? Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
You know I love lobster rolls. I had a lobster roll truck at my 40th birthday.
Yeah. I like the warm ones.
And
better than the cold.
And they would do cold or hot. And I love the hot brown butter style. And the lobster was just perfect. And I was like, man, this is a lot of money for a little lobster roll. I immediately want another one, but we had multiple stops planned in the day. Like eating was really the main thing we were trying to do. And in the process of eating it, I dropped a freaking piece of lobster on the ground.
Oh no.
And by my math, it was approximately $3.75 worth of lobster.
Was it dirt or linoleum? Did you pick it up?
Well, we were sitting at one of those like high bars facing out the window. And so in order to get the lobster off of the ground, I would have to get off of the stool and bend down, cause a scene.
Or use both of your feet.
Oh, let me tell you, I considered it.
That's a shame.
Considered it multiple times, but I let it sit there. But then I did proceed to tell the waiter, I was like, by the way, there's some lobster on the ground. Just before I had time to like get up and get it, I was just like, I just want you to understand, like, I really value the lobster. I was kind of hoping he would be like, well, we'll bring you another piece.
Really?
But
you're trying to angle for another piece of lobster?
So great start culinarily to the trip, right?
Okay. Uh-huh.
And then we head down the coast, and there's not much Maine left after Portland when you're going south. But there is a place called York, Maine, which based on my limited research was a very Maine coastline. So like we're talking rocky coastline that has a little trail that you can walk on, a little beach there.
Okay.
We actually pull up and there's a dude getting out of the water in a wetsuit. I mean, I can't explain to you how
was he surfing?
Cold he was surfing. How cold it was and how cold I imagine the water to be, but you can't keep a Maine man down.
Mm-mm.
He's gonna surf if he wants to surf.
They're used to it, they're rugged.
Took a little stroll. Again, met some more Mythical Beasts on the trail. And I was like, this is interesting.
Huh.
Because I bought a t-shirt in Maine and the girl who sold me the T-shirt was a Mythical Beast. We go to the Eventide restaurant, and somebody in the back is a Mythical Beast. We stop to take a trail in Maine, and we meet like 2 sets of Mythical Beasts, one whole family of Mythical Beasts on the trail. And I'm like, well, I haven't been out in this way in other parts of the country literally in years, right? Because I pretty much have been in North Carolina is the only place I've been.
And your Food Network show's not even out
And
yet.
the Food Network show's not even out. And I always use this collectively as a little bit of it's always a nice little check-in to be like, people still care? People still watching this show? People still listening to this podcast? And the beginning of the trip was showing a lot of promise that yes, people are still engaged, Link. Just so you know, I've gone out, I've done a report. People are still watching the show. People still know who we are.
Did they ask about me?
Yes, I got a number of, where's Link? And I was like, I don't have, he's not currently being geo-tracked by me, so I don't know. So we drive to Boston.
I was in North Carolina, by the way.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to give up your location. I felt like we needed to do something historical. Again, this was a little bit of an obligation type thing. We're gonna be going through Boston and Philadelphia. We're going through like where the country,
started
as we consider the United States, where things were kind of getting going. And Locke and I don't care a whole lot about that history, to be completely honest with you.
So neither one of you were up for it, but you did it anyway.
No, it was like, I can take a little bit, but I'm not gonna like go on the whole Freedom Trail. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a place, there's like a 2-mile stretch in Boston that you can just walk, and there's all these historical things, and you can read plaques and stuff like that. And it was like, let's just go, what's the coolest thing on this? Paul Revere's house. Yeah. Okay. So we went into Paul Revere's house. It's like $6 to walk around. This thing hasn't changed much. I felt very historical. We read all the plaques.
The British are coming.
We considered
the British are coming.
Yeah. We read about Paul Revere, and we felt like we had done our duty, and then we went, we were actually already
all right, what are we gonna eat next?
Right, exactly. Well, so I didn't know this about Boston, because you and I have been to Boston a couple of times, but we haven't spent a lot of time there, and we're usually there like under someone else's sort of guidance, right? Yeah, and so I was expecting more seafood in Boston, but apparently the north end of Boston is essentially a little Italy and has some of the best Italian food that you can find. And so I was like, well, I'm kind of in the mood for that. And plus, we wanted to watch another one of the basketball games, because the basketball games were continuing to happen throughout.
At an Italian bar?
We did. We went to an Italian restaurant that had a bar, sat at the bar and ate. I drank a little bit, and we watched one of the basketball games. And then we went to another place. I can't remember. We had some really good Italian food. But we had to leave Boston and get to Rhode Island. This is one of the states I was checking off, marking off of the list that I've never been to. Didn't realize until relatively recently that it is not an island.
Oh, God.
Did you think Rhode Island was an island?
I think it's kind of shaped like Florida.
You look at that part of the map.
It's like a peninsula. So I guess.
It's not even really a peninsula.
I would have said, sure, it's an island.
Well, this is the deal. There is an island called Rhode Island that they call something else that is a big island that is right there. And I think when most just amateur map people like me look at a map, they see an island up there and they're like, that's Rhode Island. It's really, really small. You can walk across it in a day. But no, it's bigger than that, and it's not an island. So we stayed in Providence. And
you didn't go to the island, the proper
We didn't really have
island?
time because we had a very packed agenda the next day, okay? So because that was Maine Day and Boston Day, and then it was basically like, all we're gonna do is sleep in Rhode Island. So stayed in Providence. I gotta say, I don't feel like I fully experienced you, Providence. I was inside you for a very small amount of time, but nothing happened. It wasn't exciting, you know what I'm saying?
Nothing happened.
I was just inside and then I pulled out real fast. But what I did have is a donut, because it seemed like they were very proud of their donuts. In that part of the country, they tend to be very proud of their donuts.
Yeah.
And I had a very good donut and a very good latte. That was the thing. Every single day, Locke and I were like, where are we gonna get that latte? He loves lattes, I love lattes. Not coffee, lattes. Yes, we are fully Angelino, okay? And
I didn't think latte was Angelino. It's just a lot of milk. So I like a latte.
Yeah, but it's a little frou-frou, let's just be honest.
Okay.
Cowboys drink black coffee. You see Clint Eastwood showing up, at the campfire and asking for a latte.
Dab of cream?
Yeah, I mean, come on, get with the program here. It's a little frou-frou. But I unashamedly enjoy it. But you gotta make sure you get a good one. So we would look up and where's the best place for a latte? This place happened to have donuts.
Food really directed your trajectory.
I was like, we both really like to eat and we both really like lattes. And so we're gonna be happy. If you're well fed, you're going to be happy, even if you don't get to do some attraction that you thought you wanted to do. Better to be well fed than to be well entertained with your eyes.
I think I would do the same thing. I'm not much of a sightseeing person, especially when there's an itinerary.
Yeah.
I think I would prioritize the food too.
And it's funny, both of these trips have done something to me. Gotten me to a place, I have a tendency, and I know you have the same tendency to be like, am I really enjoying this as much as I should? Did I make the best decision about where we went? Did I stop at the right places? What did I miss? Did I do enough research? Are we having as good a time as we should be having right now?
They call that FOMO.
I constantly ask myself that question. In fact, Locke and I had a really great conversation as we were walking on the Maine coastline. I was talking about how I'm having a great time. This is beautiful. But I just want to, Locke and I we connect a lot, and we've connected a lot this year, which is interesting because we had that conversation on Biscuits about what to do in his last year. And these two trips have our friendship has really blossomed.
That's cool.
And we had this conversation. I was telling him about this. I was like, man, we're in this place, we're doing this amazing thing, and I'm kind of thinking about what else we could be seeing and what am I missing? And I had to I made a decision on that first day in Maine to sort of let go of that and be like, whatever I'm experiencing is what I'm supposed to be experiencing. And so I didn't have that FOMO the rest of the trip.
That's good. That's very good, Rhett.
But we needed to get to Yale. Now I want to be clear, Locke he may be interested in Yale, but he's not Yale material. so he's not going to Yale. But one of his really good friends is, okay? And so we wanted to see him. We wanted to stop and see his buddy Ray, who we've known for years. And we were like, Ray's at Yale. I've always wanted to see Yale. Locke really wants to see Yale to see what he's not ever going to experience.
Uh-huh.
And just to see an Ivy League school. And I have this this visions in my mind of what a Northeast Ivy League school looks like. I've never been to Harvard, never been to Yale. I've been texting with Ray. We were on a little group thread and I was planning the trip and I was like, hey, what's your schedule on so-and-so date that we're coming through? And he was a little slow to respond. And then we kind of worked it out. He's like, oh, I've got class that day, but I'll be able to get lunch with you guys, And I was like, okay, well, I'll plan it so that we're coming through around lunchtime. Locke and I'll probably walk around the campus, check it out, and then we'll get lunch.
We'll have lattes.
And the latte had already happened. And so we arrive in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where Yale was, which is not something that I could have told you. And we park next to campus and I text Ray and I'm like, hey, we're here. We're gonna walk around a little bit. Let us know when you're out of class. I'll come get you and we'll go to this place that we're gonna eat that I had chosen. Consulted with him, but chosen.
Yeah. For
reasons I'll get into. Ray was like, what? You're here? Your text said you would be here on so-and-so date a month later.
A month later.
So I was there on March 20-something and my text had said I was gonna be there on April 20-something because when I looked at the calendar, I got it wrong.
By a month.
By a whole month.
Oh, wow. So was he able to meet you?
First of all, let me just tell you that these circumstances bring high amounts of shame to me. I do not like to be the guy that makes the mistake. I hate making mistakes.
You don't know your months, dude.
And I just beat myself up over it. So I was like, dang it, what is wrong with me? How did I screw this up? But then he immediately is like, but we were there on a Monday, which was the same day that we had planned on. And so he's like, you know what? What a welcomed surprise. My schedule's the same as it was gonna be. I'll text you when I'm out of class. Totally fine.
Huh.
So I felt great. so we meet Ray, and it turns out that
he said, "What a welcome surprise!"
What
That's
a welcome
something a Yale student would say.
since he's been at Yale, he's using terms like that, right? Yeah, I think he also used the term sparingly one time, but he didn't use it sparingly.
Yeah, well, one time is pretty sparingly.
No, he's always been a well-spoken guy. That's why he's at Yale. So I had been told by the guy that I knew from Maine, but also from a little research, that New Haven, Connecticut is known best for its pizza. In fact, considered to have what might be the best pizza in the nation. And specifically—
Is it a different style?
How do you say that? Neapolitan?
Yeah, I'd say it that way.
It's that style. So a pizza about that big that they kind of put into a wood fire oven. And apparently this place, Frank Pepe's
Neapolitan.
Frank Pepe's is supposed to be great. In fact, has been voted the #1 pizza place in the nation by some publications.
Oh.
So I was very excited about this.
Were they expecting you next month?
No, I didn't make a reservation, thankfully, because I would have been a month off. And it's a little bit of like a hole in the wall, kind of outside of the main part of town situation. And there's another place that's supposed to be its competitor that I didn't seem like it was as good based on what I saw. Anyway, had a good meal. I wouldn't say it's the best pizza I've ever had. I'm sorry, New Haven. It was very, very good. I did get a t-shirt. Okay, it was good enough to get the t-shirt. But once you get to a certain level of pizza, it's sort of like, how do you go any further? You know what I mean?
Okay. I get that.
But interesting thing that happened at Yale. So as I explained to you a second ago, was getting recognized a fair amount. Got recognized at the Paul Revere House in Boston, right? Like, okay, I'm like, okay, this is coming down from the East Coast. There's people in the Northeast who are Mythical Beasts. It makes me feel good. But when we get to Yale, we get out of the car and we start walking, and the students are getting out of class, and there's just hundreds of students. And I turn to Locke and I say, now, Locke, I don't think I'm gonna get recognized at Yale. I was like, these students are too busy and too smart for us. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Oh, you're throwing the Mythical Beasts under the bus.
Listen, I just think that if you're at this institution, you're just studying a whole lot and you're thinking about things on such a high level that I'm sorry to say, I just don't consider what we bring to the table in terms of entertainment to be highbrow, Link. I mean, at times we may sound smart, but it's a charade.
No.
And I think that, I'm not saying that the Mythical Beasts are stupid by any means. I'm just saying that, when we're getting to like the 0.1% smartest people on the planet, I just think at that point, they're just not watching a lot of YouTube videos. Is my guess, right?
Okay.
That was my theory. My theory proved correct. I walked past hundreds of students pouring out of classrooms. Nobody says a thing. I felt good that I had been right in my prediction, a little bit bad that I had been right in my prediction. So
these people they're preoccupied.
They're preoccupied.
They don't have time for entertainment.
But so we spend a couple of hours between, we walked around, like the way that they do it is they live in these colleges. There's multiple colleges on a campus. It's very much designed in the way, like when I went to Oxford a while back, when I was in London, when I was in England, it's you could totally tell they were like, we did it this way over here and now we're gonna come over here and do these Ivy League schools in exactly the same way. So we like walk through the iron doors. I mean, first of all, the campus is just, you've been on like Duke's campus before, which has this old school feel. It's like that on steroids. And the college is, this is where you live in you have this little courtyard and you walk through this iron gate and there's
medieval stonework.
All this stonework, incredible stonework. And then he like passes by the Skull and Bones like house.
Oh, really?
This is their meeting house or whatever. But again, no one's recognized me. And we finish up, we had lunch with Ray, we say our goodbyes to Ray, and then we start walking to the car. And we are.
Then a whole group of Yale students says, surprise, we didn't know who you were.
50 yards from the car, Locke turns to me, he's like, Dad, I actually didn't believe you, but you were right. No one at Yale recognized you. The moment he finishes the sentence, I hear, Rhett from Rhett and Link, holy.
Oh, wow. That's a very sophisticated response.
And there was a guy who I think he recognized me.
A little bit.
And continued to just be like, man, holy Rhett from Rhett and Link. So it was just like the enthusiasm.
Made up for the...
If, I could get recognized by no one at Yale and to have one guy say, holy when he recognizes me.
Right.
Passionately. It changed my whole view of Yale. It changed my whole view of the Ivy League system.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope.
For us.
I will continue telling you the story. There's a lot more cities. There's a lot more stories on the way. But we do want to talk about Inside Eats with Rhett and Link, our television show.
I mean, it's been a while since we had a television show.
It has. We do this about every 10 years.
So, yeah, we go behind the scenes. We get unfettered access. Well, we're kind of fettered. There's people there who are watching us, but we go to like test kitchens. We go to headquarters of your favorite eateries, food places. So, I mean, Chipotle, Cheesecake Factory. We also went to Cool House, an amazing ice cream shop that's, I'll call it syndicated. Beyond Meat. We were the first people to ever get access to film behind the scenes at Beyond Meat, which was really cool. So we learned a lot and had a lot of fun. So it's this interesting mix of comedy and food experience and access that creates Inside Eats with Rhett and Link. 10:30 p.m. Food Network. Same time it's launched on Discovery Plus. The extended versions are on Discovery Plus.
Yeah.
So check it out.
We've been saying things like bonus footage, but that makes you think that you're gonna have to like click on something else. And it's like, no, the episodes are longer and have things that we had to cut out to get to the 22. Extended versions is the right word.
Yeah. So check it out. We're on Food Network. We're doing it. And I think we're just being us, man.
Just being us, man.
Eating stuff, having a great time. Check it out. Inside Eats.
Okay, so left New Haven. The plan is to head to New York and look at a school in New York that Locke is interested in.
Oh, wow, yeah, because that I was picturing Rhode Island and Connecticut south of New York State.
Nope.
I don't know why.
It is funny how the geography sort of
gets jumbled
coalesces in your mind as you're driving through it. The other thing that you realize is that unlike any place that I've ever lived, the concentration of population in major cities is so high, so much higher in the Northeast than anywhere else. Like once you get to like North Carolina, you're gonna be driving a while before you get to a major metropolitan area. But when you're up there, you're gonna go from like Portland to Boston to Providence to New Haven to New York to Philly to Baltimore to DC. Like there's just a bunch of big cities right there next to each other because it's where it all started, you know?
How long were you in New York City?
So we get to New York in the afternoon and we're the McLaughlins, so we did not plan any official tours. Let me just say.
You're talking about New York City, not New York State.
New York City. You should plan official college tours. I'll explain it in a second. Because with this campus in particular, it's a pretty secure campus. And when we tried to just walk into it, we were stopped by a security guard who was like, you can't just walk in here. I was like, well, he's been accepted here and he's just looking, no, you can't do that. It has to be like an official thing. And I was like, okay. So we ended up traveling into Manhattan.
Scaling a wall?
Traveling into Manhattan and spending the night and then setting up a tour for the next day to drive back out of the city to go to this school for an official tour. So that was a little bit of a hiccup in our travel schedule, but it didn't really matter. So that night, I'll tell you about that in a second, but that night we go to Lower East Side, New York, which just happens to be where we end up staying like every time we go to New York.
Yeah.
Which is a great spot, really high concentration of great restaurants and stuff. When you have an 18-year-old with you, you can't go into bars and you can't like go into comedy clubs. There's a lot of things that you can't do when you have somebody under 21. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I haven't thought about this. But what you can do is go to restaurants. So we like did the whole food tour-ish type thing where you go to a restaurant and you just get a couple of things and you leave and you go to another restaurant and get a couple of things. This style of vacation has really like opened a whole world to me, this road trip vacation where you just drop into a city and eat a couple of things at a few different restaurants. It might be my new way of vacationing. It's just, I don't necessarily mean a full like top of the nation to the bottom of the nation road trip, but it might be like, I'm gonna land in one state, spend a couple of days in this place, and I'm gonna go to this other state, this other city. Like this dual city thing. Okay. I'm definitely floating this idea with Jesse.
You're getting ready for Europe then. That's how you can do Europe.
So we spend some time in Manhattan, have some great food, then we go back, we do the official tour, which was illuminating because we've done some unofficial tours, but like when you can like get into the buildings and stuff and like, you don't have to like wait till a student like opens a door and then like run in behind them. It's much better. And then you also get to ask questions to people who have experience at this college.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, oh man, like this is lesson learned for Shepard is what I kept telling Locke. I was like, okay, when me and Shepard do this, I'm gonna do it better than I did it with you.
Okay.
And you don't have to you don't have to do what I did. If you have a kid, do official tours. You're probably already thinking that. Now, I knew I wanted to drive to Philadelphia, and again, we were gonna go to Pat's and Gino's and eat a cheesesteak from both places.
Oh, both places.
So the thing was to take Locke to this place where I've got this experience from making this video in 2008.
Yeah.
On the Alka-Seltzer Great American Road Trip. And I was like, we're gonna taste these cheesesteaks and then you're gonna help me determine which one's the best, and then we're gonna get the t-shirt from the place that we think has got the best cheesesteak.
But I hear a but coming.
So we go to Gino's first, okay? And
the flashy one.
Flashy orange color, you know,
Neon.
he's the one that's like the big personality, bit of a controversial character as well. I think he had a sign on the door for years that was just like, if you can't order in English, don't order at all or something like that. I think it's since been taken down. But I was like, okay, but these are the classic cheesesteak places. We're gonna get one from both of them. We get up to Gino's, and immediately the guys who are cooking the steaks back there, who are not old enough to have worked there since 2008. These guys are in their 20s.
Yeah.
Are like, Rhett from the video.
From the video?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they all see the video.
So it's not like Rhett from Good Mythical Morning, it's just like this video apparently is something that if you work at Pat's and Gino's, you've seen this video. And so then they were like, he knows what's up, he came back to the right place. And I wasn't about to say, I'm going to Pat's right after this. So we get one cheesesteak. Now, first of all, Locke's a little bit picky, okay? And I kind of knew this was gonna be a little bit difficult for him because I was like, the way that they suggest you order it is with Cheese Whiz. And he was like, Dad, I can't eat something with Cheese Whiz on it. Like, he just won't do it. And so I was like, all right, well, you're probably right. Let's get the one with provolone, which is better anyway, right?
That's what I thought.
So we get like, you know, he has a special way you have to order it. They're not as strict at Gino's as they are at Pat's about saying it all in the right order or whatever. But we get it and we split it and we eat it. And first thing I'm struck with is like, this is not that great. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm like, I've had a lot of great cheesesteaks and I've had a lot of good sandwiches, and I was just like,
yeah,
this is just not that great. But it's pretty good, but it's not, if I made a cheesesteak at home, if I threw something together with some good bread and some cheesesteak meat, like I'd be getting pretty close to this, right? And Locke's like, it's good. It's pretty good. So then we go to Pat's. And I went around the back to I didn't want them to see me just go over to Pat's. I felt a little self-conscious.
Yeah,
because they had to be like, you chose the right place.
Because you can see them from each other.
Yeah, oh yeah, because there
right.
are two adjacent corners.
Yeah.
So we go over to Pat's, and first thing I do is I order from the wrong window, like a moron, because there's a drink and everything else window, and there's a cheesesteak window. And there's a very particular way, and you're supposed to say it in an order. It's kind of a little bit of at this point.
It's a pain.
It's part of the like.
It's a test.
The vibe. They make this thing with provolone. I gotta be honest with you, like at Gino's, they put the provolone and the meat together and it kind of melted. At Pat's, they put the provolone on after they put the meat on there, and it was just like not melted into the meat. And
so
then
it wasn't good either.
We sit down, Locke takes one bite and spits it out.
Oh my gosh.
And I take a bite and I'm like, oh gosh, this is actively bad.
Oh my gosh.
This is actively bad.
I remember Pat's being better.
That's what I thought. I'm just saying, and again, you can't.
They've gone downhill, man.
No, I have a theory and I have a conclusion. I have 3 conclusions I came to on this trip, and one of them is about passing. Okay. My theory is, now the thing that you see all on Pat's, all on the advertising is about how they're the first place. They're the guys who invented cheesesteaks, the original. That's what it says all over, and it's like all these different fonts are like written many different times in many different ways. If you've been doing something the same way for, I don't know, 50 years, well, the American palate has been transformed significantly, and people are eating better and better things. As Locke said, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, he's like, Dad, the Big Kahuna from Jersey Mike's is like 5 times as good as either of these sandwiches. And I was like, you are 100% right. The bread is better, the meat is better, the cheese is better, the way they do it is better. If you're just doing something to do it the same way, and let me tell you, no crowds at either place. I didn't have to wait at either place.
I bet it's only tourists too.
So here's my conclusion, and I hate to throw it, listen, I'm a fan of what you've done. I'm a fan of the tradition. I went there, I purchased a steak. I did not get a t-shirt from either place. I didn't feel like either place stood up to met the standard. My challenge, my conclusion is that one of the places, Pat's and Gino's, if they actually want to end the cheesesteak wars once and for all, they need to publicly admit that it's time to change, and they need to reinvent their cheesesteak and do it in a way that reflects the evolution of the modern palate. And they need to bring out a new cheesesteak and be like, listen, we did it the same way for 50 years, and now we're doing it the right way. And all of a sudden, the other place will be leveled. The other place will never recover. If you got the kahunas or the cojones to do it, do it. That's my conclusion.
When I was in North Carolina, we went to Highway 55, formerly known as Andy's Cheesesteaks when we were growing up there. Got some new facilities next to the Bojangles in Lillington.
It's better.
That is a good cheesesteak,
It's better. It's better than Pat's and Gino's.
Yeah.
I came to 2 other conclusions that I'll fold into this because the other one happened on the same day. I had noticed by this point that there were multiple times when we needed to use the restroom.
Okay.
When you're traveling, you need to use the restroom. And when you're in a city, there's no public restrooms. There's no public restrooms, and there's so few public restrooms in America.
But you're always eating at a restaurant.
At Pat's and Gino's, they don't have a bathroom. We had to piss. We've been drinking lattes, man. Big lattes. Yeah. Eating cheesesteaks, drinking Pepsi or whatever it was.
I think I know where you're going with this.
I gotta piss, man. And then we start talking about like, I mean, I had to piss so bad. Am I gonna find a place to piss? And Locke's like, you can't do that because you don't want to get arrested for public urination. That would be bad. That would be bad look. You know.
I would love that for you.
And then I was like, I actually think I could live this one down. I think this might be good PR for me because it's not real serious. But I was like, you're right. So we actually had to do this in New Haven, and then we had to do it again, where you go into a place and you purchase something
just
in order to use the restroom. So in New Haven, we went to a Subway and got a cookie so we could use the restroom.
That hurts.
And in Philly, we went into an Italian restaurant and I asked for 1 garlic knot. Apparently you can't get 1 garlic knot. They gave me 4. So 4 garlic knots or 1 cookie equals 1 urination.
Basically, I want 2 the bathroom special.
Yeah. And we did eat the cookie and we did eat all 4 garlic knots because why not? You've got them there. And then I came to a conclusion. I was like, this didn't happen to me when I was in Australia because everywhere you go in Australia, there is a toilet that you can put a coin in to access, a public toilet that requires a little bit of money to use. Paid public restrooms. Now, whether they're free and whether they're subsidized or whether they're paid, America needs more restrooms. They need more public restrooms in cities. I just don't, I don't
think they
get
could
it.
Turn all of the defunct pay phones into
little walk-in closets.
I mean, remember in Amsterdam, you'd walk around this like spiral thing to the center and then you would pee and from your shoulders up, as a 6 foot tall person, from my shoulders up, I was just looking at the landscape.
Yeah.
At the urban landscape.
Yeah.
I could make eye contact with people while I was peeing.
No, I don't like that.
But you couldn't see me peeing. Well, you could see my face.
You might see me peeing.
And tell that I was peeing.
I don't know.
And you could also see my shoes in some of them, I think. And I think there was like a toilet there. But yeah, and there was no door. It was just like kind of like a snail shell.
Well, what ends up happening?
I love that.
What ends up happening in American cities, and I'm sure this happens around the world, but homelessness is a big issue in American cities, and it's only gotten worse through the pandemic. So you've got these unhoused people who got to use the bathroom somewhere. And so, but these restaurants are like, I don't want this homeless person coming in here and messing up my bathroom. And so you got to purchase something to use the bathroom, customers only. And then it creates situations where the homeless people are using the bathroom, sometimes on the street. In LA, there's like, they'll bring like a porta potty or something like that out there. But
I thought you were gonna say that you were gonna get like a Go Girl. Like one of those things,
I have one.
For girls.
I didn't bring it though.
That it works in such a way that
I have a wide mouth. I'm not bragging.
Nalgene.
I'm not bragging. I'm
you
just
have a
saying.
pee Nalgene.
No, I have a thing that is glows in the dark. I talked about this before on my camping trip.
Non-potable Nalgene.
It's a glow in the dark thing with a handle that you can pee in during the night while camping.
I love that.
And I should have just brought that.
Should have brought that. But
Well,
you could have bought.
We would have one per person.
Yeah, you could have. But you could have bought like a big container.
Well, here's the other thing. The third conclusion I
That's
came
the thing
to.
you need.
The third conclusion I came to, because I love these things, is one of the things they have in the Northeast is these travel centers. You know about the travel centers?
Yeah, like a truck stop.
But
it's a gas station.
It's a rest stop that has it has multiple things. It is a gas station,
right.
A convenience store.
Yeah.
It is a electric car charging station, and it is a food court with like a Starbucks and a McDonald's and a KFC, multiple places, and then a bunch of places to sit, and of course, really nice, very large, very clean bathrooms.
It's like a capitalistic rest stop.
And I just gotta say, we need more of these in the United States. It's just because
this is the platform you're running on. Coin-operated toilets and travel centers everywhere.
It's such a missed opportunity. Like rest stops are okay, but like the travel centers just make you feel so American.
Okay. Well, I mean, go as long as you want, but we're still in New York State.
Yeah. As you know what, the pacing of my conversation goes with the concentration of metro areas, which again is very, very cluttered at the top of the country.
Okay.
So from there, we drove.
Well, I guess we were in Philly.
We drove to Washington, D.C. to spend the night.
Oh.
This may have been the highlight. Okay. Yeah. Now let me just say, I wasn't expecting D.C. to be the highlight. And I've been to D.C. many times, and I've seen all the monuments and the stuff that you see, and it's just like, it's always kind of cool, but it's not like.
I can't guess why D.C.
Well, I'm gonna blow your mind.
It has to be the food, obviously. It's all you did.
Well, so Washington, D.C. has great Ethiopian food because there's a very large Ethiopian population. It's really known for some great Ethiopian food, so we picked like the best place. I knew this was gonna be a little bit of a stretch for Locke, because again, he's picky, and picky people don't like to venture out into places like Ethiopian food.
I think I would like Ethiopian food.
So it's essentially a bunch of meats and vegetables and stuff put on this big pancake, and then you take another piece of the pancake and you pick it up and eat it. It's exquisite. I love it, but it's the kind of thing that I don't want to do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like satisfying, great, whatever. Well, we had some plans for the next day. I had originally planned that we were gonna wake up early and go basically see the monuments, right? We stayed in a hotel pretty near the mall, the mall, and he thought that was, until I clarified, he thought that was like a mall. No, this is not a mall, son. We're not shopping. This is a place where all the monuments are. But then I'm looking, it's like 10 o'clock at night after we finished. We had gotten there late, we ate a late dinner, got some dessert at another place. Again, we would like go to two different places. That was the MO. And I'm like, these monuments are open 24 hours a day and there's lights.
That's cool.
And I was like, let's go see all of them right now in the middle of the night.
It's a good idea.
So we took an Uber to the Jefferson Memorial. which is on like the far side of the tidal basin, which I didn't know that's what it was called, but that's the giant lake there in the middle that all the monuments are around, right next to the mall. That's the tidal basin.
The shallow swimming pool?
No. You're thinking about the long man-made thing that's directly between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. I'm talking a giant lake.
Oh, okay.
So we go to the Jefferson Memorial and again, it's probably like 10:45, 11 p.m. at this point. There's one family in the Jefferson Memorial and they leave. So we have the entire Jefferson Memorial to ourselves. And I never—
What are you gonna do with it?
Deface it. No, we were like talking about how like there's all these like cameras and there's cops around. Not that we actually wanted to deface it, but I've only ever seen this stuff when there's a bunch of other people and it's like hot and it was like cold. It was like kind of uncomfortably cold. And that made the crowds really low. People were like, why am I gonna go in the middle of the night when it's cold? But these things are designed to be seen at night. The lighting is incredible and there's like this solemn sort of feel. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. So we go clockwise around the whole thing. So we stop, so like Jefferson Memorial, and then there's other stuff that I hadn't never really seen before, like there's a whole FDR section, and then there's a whole MLK section, which is amazing. I think that might be the most recent
That's
one.
newer, yeah. Haven't seen that.
And then going around, hitting the Lincoln Memorial, which there was probably like 10 people there. Like you can't get the Lincoln Memorial to yourself. It's just too popular. But like we stood up there on the stage and we had just seen the Martin Luther King Memorial, and then we go stand exactly where he stood when he gave his speech. And we're just talking about like when he gave this speech, like if you could have told him like, listen, you're gonna be remembered as this great man. And no matter of fact, there's gonna be like a 40-foot statue of you over here, almost within eyeshot. And you're gonna be killed for saying these things, you know, by the government, most likely. You know what I'm saying? It's like it was just kind of surreal. And Locke and I were like having really great conversation about a lot of things. But I got this weird feeling of, I'm gonna use the term patriotism, but let me contextualize that. You know, our country is so divided, so viciously divided right now, right?
Yeah.
And like people on both sides of the argument think that the people on the other side are legitimately evil, right? Like that's the point that we've gotten to. Like we've gotten so polarized that we think that the other group of Americans is evil. And there was something about like being there at this time and seeing these, and listen, our country is just riddled with, it's a complex, complicated history. Like I said, the fact that you've got this giant statue of MLK right next to the place where he spoke, and then like we know for a fact that the FBI didn't want him to be alive, you know? And so we know that there's so much complex history. But something about being there at night and seeing these things that like, we did this thing, we started this country, and it's supposedly built on this principle of the equality of all people. And we put these things in this giant grassy area to like symbolize this. And there was just something kind of moving about it. And strangely, like this sense of hope that like, obviously like looking at the Washington Monument, it isn't like the fact that we can build this giant obelisk into the sky means we're gonna get through this, but naively maybe is what it made me feel. I was like, all right, we're gonna get through this, and this big giant ass thing is gonna still be in the air. But
wow,
aside
so
from
it worked.
Aside from the propaganda, I told Locke, I was like, the propaganda is working very well for this guy. Like I'm very susceptible to marketing, but the whole thing is just marketing America. And I was like, you got me. Like I believe in this principle, equality for all people. Let's make it happen. Let's come together and make it happen. But regardless of your political affiliation and what you think about what I just said, let me just tell you, go see him at night. Go see those monuments at night. It's just awesome. Locke told me that it was a highlight of the trip for him.
That's
like
awesome.
He had no idea that it was even gonna happen.
It's like you're going up to each one and you're like, where is the food in this one?
Okay, so the distance traveled each day is about to increase. We drove to Charlottesville, Virginia. my nephew, Locke's cousin, goes to UVA. We took a little tour of UVA.
Cavaliers.
What a beautiful campus, by the way. I love college campuses. I love the idea of college campuses. College was a great experience for me. And I love just that, just like this city kind of just exists for this university that's been here forever. We went to Edgar Allan Poe's dorm room because he went to UVA and they still have it like preserved in the way that he would have had it when he was there. And you can like look, the door is glass and you can look into it.
Huh.
Met several mythical beasts at UVA. Then we continued on down. We actually picked up Eli, our nephew, brought him with us to North Carolina. He needed a ride.
Okay.
So we took him to North Carolina. We met the family, my family, my parents and my brother and his family, all hung out at the new cabin that we got in North Carolina. And we also picked up Shepard to now take Shepard all the way to Miami. So it's 3 McLaughlins now. That was the plan, to pick up Shepard, leave Jessie in North Carolina. She's like doing some design work there. Like she's going to like the High Point furniture thing.
Oh.
She's like living her best life in High Point.
And then Shepard's coming with you.
Yeah, and I had told the boys that first stop
is a latte.
Well, yeah, of course. So after the lattes, but the second stop is not but a creation museum.
What?
Yes, sir. Thank you to roadtrippers.com. Again, I used that service again. Still paying for it.
So you must have gone.
Nobody reached out to give it to me for free.
You left North Carolina and you went to where? Where is a creation museum?
Southern Pines.
Southern Pines, North Carolina?
Yes. So the Creation Museum, the Ken Ham Answers in Genesis Creation Museum in Kentucky that has a full-scale Noah's Ark. I haven't been there. I would love to go. I love this kind of thing.
I didn't know Southern Pines.
Sidebar, if you know my story, I used to be a Christian. I am no longer a Christian. One of the reasons I'm not is some conclusions I came to about the historicity of the Bible. But creationists and hardcore creationists, like young earth creationists, believe, and this isn't all Christians, it's a fair amount, but not all, believe that everything you read in the Bible is true and Noah's Ark was a real thing and Adam and Eve were a real thing. Evolution didn't happen.
True literally.
Yeah, true literally. It is a literal historical account, right? And so when I heard that there was a creation museum in Southern Pines, which, have you been to Southern Pines?
It's where, I mean, there's a golf course there that's really nice.
So
that's
it's near Pinehurst, where some of the best golf in the world. Southern Pines is, true to its name, a bunch of pine trees in like this very historic, quaint town.
What is at the Creation Museum there?
Well, the Creation Museum is in a Christian, that's the name of the sign. The sign says, The Christian Bookstore. That's the name of the place.
It's inside a bookstore?
So you go into the bookstore and then immediately down and to the left, there's steps that go down. And you can obviously tell you're entering into like what feels like a Southern Rainforest Cafe kind of vibe.
Oh.
Because essentially it was this pastor who has since died, but they've kept it alive. They've kept the museum alive. It is basically a collection of taxidermy, of everything you can imagine.
What?
And also a bunch of tools. So it's the Creation Museum and the Tool Museum. And it shows up on like roadside attraction type stuff because it's so
quirky.
What?
These are just normal animals?
There's like a North Carolina section, which is like everything that you can kill in North Carolina, there on display. But there's also just like mostly American things.
So it's just like, look at all these, God made this animal. Look, God made this animal.
But then there's little exhibits. Like pretty early on, there is a cabinet that is a glass cabinet and there is nothing inside of the cabinet. And on the top it says, inside this cabinet is all the credible evidence for evolution. So it's things like that. But there was a little snake with an apple inside the cabinet, which was like Satan, the serpent, inside the cabinet. Now this guy was like serious about all this. Like he didn't necessarily have a sense of humor about any of this. And I didn't know how the people who currently run the Christian bookstore were going to feel about this because I'm obviously coming in there as a guy who's like, I disagree with everything that you're talking about. But
wild, man.
But I'm fascinated by this mentality and I understand it because I've known so many people who believe this, that like, this will be a fun thing for us to do. And I'm not going in there to make fun of them to their face. I mean, obviously we're going in there to be like, what? This is crazy. We're kind of laughing, but I'm not gonna laugh in their face. And I was also like, you know, how much does it cost? And they were like, whatever you think it's worth. And so I did drop $20 into the donation thing. I'm like, I'm gonna come here and I'm, you know what? I'm gonna send a lot of people to you guys because if you're in Southern Pines, go to the Christian bookstore, look at the Creation Museum. It's fascinating. There's a whole section. It's kind of crazy how much crap this guy collected. He collected these tools that I didn't even ever really figure out what it was. They look like levels. He was really like, he's got all these old, certain type of tool.
Like found like antiques?
But a whole bunch of the same thing, like hundreds of the same thing. And I'm like, I don't even know what this thing is. I'm afraid to ask. But
you're not a placard reader.
But there is a section where like you'll go down a little hallway and come to this like glass case and it'll say, these are the things, these are the other gods that the world worships. And it'll be like country music.
What?
And then it'll be like a guy on the front of a muscle magazine. Or like a woman, but not a woman in a bikini, but like suggesting like, these are the other things. But then mixed in with the vices.
So country music, muscles and sexiness.
But you know, yeah, the worldly pleasures. But mixed in indiscriminately where the worldly pleasures is like something that represents like an African tribal religion. Like, so like other religions, like Buddhism. So like, again, you gotta understand, I totally understand this way of thinking. I used to kind of think this way growing up. You thought that all these other religions were essentially like satanic expressions of things. They weren't like somebody's like heritage and the same type of thing that you had done and come up with your own deal.
Yeah.
You thought that they were wrong and you were right. And so you could put them along with all these other vices like worrying too much about your body or caring too much about food or caring too much about music. And the boys were fascinated. They were just like, what? They couldn't process it. They were like, I don't understand what he's saying. I'm like, no, well, let me understand. He's saying that everything outside of God and Jesus, as you understood in a very particular interpretation of the Bible, everything outside of that is wrong. That's what this guy thought, and that's what a lot of people still do think. It's the source of a lot of strife.
And you gave him $20.
And I gave him $20, right. So we saw the Creation Museum, highly recommend it. And then we were on our way to Florence, South Carolina to stop at this hole-in-the-wall barbecue place that I had read about. But little did I know that kind of coming from Southern Pines and getting to Florence, South Carolina, we were gonna go right past south of the border. This was an unintended stop. So if you've ever been on I-95 going from North Carolina to South Carolina.
You got sucked in, huh?
You see, well, you can't not stop there when you're on a road trip with your kids.
Yeah.
Now, you see all the signs that-
Every mile there's a billboard.
I'm just gonna
Stop and
I'll
see
go ahead
Pedro,
and just give you an idea.
The mascot.
This is a, definitely highly racist stereotype of a Mexican man named Pedro who wears a giant sombrero and has a mustache and is welcoming you to South Carolina as if you're passing from America to Mexico. It was somebody's grand idea many, many decades ago to like have this Mexican themed playland.
There's a motel there, there's a putt-putt place there.
There's a giant Pedro with a giant sombrero tower that you can go into.
Yeah.
So we stopped there.
How is it still?
It's not doing well, man. I mean, we literally were inside the souvenir shop and the power went out. Like it just, the whole place just went black. I guess they shut down while we're here.
The end.
We witnessed the end of south of the border.
Wow.
But the boys, again, you know, they're growing up in much more informed times than we did. And so like, they're just like, Dad, this is like so racist. I'm like, yes, son, I did not realize that when I was your age, but you've been educated differently. So we decided to not get a t-shirt. I was like,
Okay, yeah.
I don't really want to play into this whole thing. But it's still there. and it's become a little bit of an artifact.
Yeah.
In and of itself. But we were gonna go to this hole in the wall barbecue place. Now, I just heard about this place. I'm torn with mentioning it because the barbecue was very, very good. But the guy is like so politically, like he's really just set himself up. His barbecue place has become like a political statement.
Oh.
So you can find it if you want to. You're not going to do too much research, but I won't give him the free advertising. But the barbecue was impeccable.
Really? Mustard based?
It wasn't. So mustard based is kind of isolated more to the Columbia area, and we weren't going through Columbia, and so they had a mustard base that you could put on things that we did kind of get, but the barbecue, we got pulled pork sandwiches, and they were pre-sauced, but sauced in a good way, and pretty finely chopped. So very similar to North Carolina in that there's like, it's not pulled pork, it's chopped pork, which is not my preference if I'm doing it myself.
Yeah,
but,
me neither.
I like to make whatever I'm eating in the moment my preference because I have a lot better time with it. So, and I did that and it was exquisite. It was great. It's a food truck that is next to a dining facility, like a dining room on just like this random road.
Like a shelter.
No, it's like you could have put the restaurant in here, but you didn't.
Because you want to drive it away.
But there's a pool table in the middle of it, and Fox News was on the television, and then we all purposely sat right next to, because we were the only ones in there, a giant picture of Donald Trump. The picture was so big that when you're next to it, it was like you couldn't even tell what, it was so pixelated. Like you could see that they had printed this thing out and they did not have a picture that was large enough. The resolution of the Trump picture wasn't large enough for this sign, but it says, it's got Republican with a checkbox, Democrat with a checkbox, and then Trump with a checkbox, and it's checked Trump and hasn't checked Republican or Democrat.
Wow.
So that's the statement that this guy's making. And there's a lot of other questionable paraphernalia and some stuff on the wall and that kind of thing. But the thing is that is what the South is in a lot of ways, right? Like if you get outside of the cities, that's the mentality that you're gonna run into a lot of the people. And I was just basically just telling the boys, I'm like, this is where I come from. Like this is our background. And this is the barbecue that they make. And I'm not gonna just not go there, because they've identified with this racist asshole. But it was a little bit of an eye-opening experience, but they also kind of loved it in a sense. Not love what that dude stands for and what the mentality that those people have, but it's almost like going to a foreign place.
Yeah.
Now, when you live in Los Angeles, you don't get to see that.
Right.
And we have the privilege as a three white dudes just rolling through the countryside. I'm not worried about my safety. I might get some side eye because of my hair or whatever, or the clothes I've got on.
Yeah.
But my life is not in danger. I don't feel unsafe. I don't feel like I need to make sure I'm in my hotel before the sun goes down.
Right.
Which if my skin was a different color, I might feel that way. So I recognize the privilege in being able to like go and experience these things in almost like a historian, like an observer, like a journalist type way, because I can just come back to my bubble over here in Los Angeles and not have to see any of this stuff. But great barbecue if you happen to figure out where it is based on what I just said. We stopped in Savannah, Georgia. Again, now you're talking, like you see how quickly we're moving, right?
Yeah.
So we go from North Carolina, we're in North Carolina, we eat lunch in South Carolina, and then we're in Savannah, Georgia for dinner. Like
Savannah's
that's how quickly
cool, isn't it?
Savannah is awesome.
I know Birmingham is really cool.
Savannah is a different thing.
But Savannah's
I don't think
I've never.
on the ocean.
Oh yeah, we've been have we been?
I've been to Savannah before, but I don't know if I was with you.
I've been to Savannah.
Savannah is everything that you imagine in terms of like the deep South with the mossy trees and the humidity. Again, the temperature had changed significantly by the time we get down here to Georgia. And it's basically, there's a small part of Georgia that's on the coast, and Savannah is there. There's like Augusta at the top, and then Savannah.
Okay.
And Savannah is old and beautiful, and it kind of has a little bit of a Charleston meets New Orleans, kind of like, there's a high concentration of really great things to eat, lots of things to do. There was like a music festival going on. There's like soul food, Southern cooking restaurants on every single corner, right? And of course, we didn't know we were gonna be there, so I'm not doing any reservations. I'm just like getting there, and maybe there's a place that I've researched ahead of time. But like we like walking into places and there's like, we don't have any tables, but we did find a place. And I just wanted to give you, this is what we ordered, just to give you an idea of the food. We had Low Country mac and cheese with shrimp and sausage.
Oh.
That's what Shepard got. I got gumbo and grits, which had everything from gumbo and cheese grits. And Locke got country fried bison. And we just kind of shared it all.
Country fried bison sounds strange.
It was like country style steak, but bison. So it was a little bit leaner. It was incredible.
Wow.
I highly recommend Savannah. And that's when it started to hit me. I was like, man, me and Jesse would have a good time. Me and Jesse would have a better time than me and the boys are having here. Because it's got that sort of like, there's a little bit of romance in the air. It's supposedly the most haunted city in America. So if you're into like the ghost tour of it all, there's a bunch of people going around on a ghost tour, basically.
Oh, okay.
Just so much history there. And then we ended up spending the night in Jacksonville, Florida. So we got all the way to Florida, from North Carolina to Florida. Again, it's like so much more time passed, or much more mileage under our belts in the second half of the trip. We spent the night in Jacksonville, which, by the way, I learned is the largest city by area in the continental United States. It's 840 square miles. Jacksonville, Florida is 840 square miles. Yeah. It's on the east coast of Florida, at the very top, basically right when you get into Florida.
Okay. Yeah, I've only passed through there, but I guess it did take a while.
Don't feel like I gave Jacksonville its due. We just got to a hotel late at night and stayed there and then got a latte and got out. The latte was pretty good, but we wanted to get to St. Augustine.
Oh, the oldest city in America.
So St. Augustine was...
My dad's been there a few times. He always talks about how much he loves it down there. The grass.
I could totally see your dad loving it, and I gotta say, the sort of middle-aged white dude in me kind of loves it too. Like there's something that kind of draws you
There's
in.
old houses, there's golf, there's grass.
Yeah.
And you should see the blades of grass down there.
The food in all these places, you're getting in just like the best food in America, you know? I mean, in St. Augustine, you're kind of so St. Augustine has like a Spanish influence. I learned so much history. I didn't understand how old St. Augustine was. But they basically like built that mission there like a few decades after Columbus. Like we're talking like 1530 or something like that. They're basically like, this is a town now, Spaniards. And then I also didn't realize that the Spaniards owned Florida until the 1800s. Did you know that? And maybe the late 1800s. It's weird. I just didn't understand. We didn't take great history and I didn't pay attention to it.
Well, you got the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah, that was when Louisiana was purchased. We're talking about Florida.
And then Florida was after that?
Florida was like one of the last things on the East Coast. It was the last thing on the East Coast. There's a weird thing that happened with Key West and like the Confederacy at some point, and the Confederacy like used the fort there at St. Augustine, which we toured at some point during the war. I don't know, man. It's a cool place. There's a lot of history there. But we were heading to Miami, and this is when we started. We actually had been listening to this ahead of time, but I'm gonna break this out. This is my rec for the week.
Okay.
Have you heard Keith Whitley's Miami, Miami, which is his #1 song? It's actually bigger than when you say it best, you say nothing at all.
I don't know it that well, but I know that it sounds like he's saying
the chorus
Miami,
he says,
Miami.
Miami, Miami.
Is gone or something.
He thought she was gonna be gone, but he's in LA. The thing is that he's in LA and she's in Miami and he's on a plane to Miami to see her, and Miami, Miami loves me after all. It is an amazing song. We listened to a lot of Keith Whitley. We got into,
tearjerker. He died.
He died at 34.
Yeah.
We listened to a lot of Keith Whitley. The boys were really into Keith Whitley.
I don't know what he died from.
Locke said alcoholism when he looked it up on Wiki.
That's sad.
So we started playing like
Great voice.
Miami. Like as you're driving towards Miami and you're playing Keith Whitley, it's just everything is falling into place.
Much better than the Will Smith Miami route.
Yeah.
Still a fan, but I never liked that song.
Well, speaking of songs, I talked about this in the AMA that we did the other day for the Mythical Society, but I love to play music that is regional, whether it's, if we're heading through a town. So like Dawes has a great song, St. Augustine at Night, which we listened to in the morning because that's when we were in St. Augustine. We kind of hated that we weren't there at night, but that's a great song. But we're listening to Miami, and then we're heading into Miami, but I had a little surprise plan. And that was to stop and take a fan boat on the Everglades.
No, really? Oh, you did that?
And I did it.
Oh man, I'm so jealous. That's the one thing that I've wanted to do before I die.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted
now
to
you can die.
I've always wanted to be on a fan boat, and I didn't
so
know whether it was,
you made plans.
I made plans,
Okay.
and I almost didn't get there in time. Man, so the Everglades are really big, and they start pretty high, but they end in the bottom in Miami.
So you gonna take a fan boat to Miami?
No, so I was basically, there was multiple locations, but I was like, I'm gonna drive to the one that's next to Miami. So we're kind of like almost done with our day, and we do this like late afternoon fan boat ride.
Oh, okay.
And shout out to the people at Sawgrass Recreational Center. They have a little reptile zoo, and then they have the fan boat rides, and there are a few Mythical Beasts on the staff there. And I learned some things. So it's just the three of us and the dude operating the fan boat.
How many seats were on this? 6?
There's 3 rows of bench seats with no seat belts.
Oh.
No, there's nothing over you. It's just like a bench, and you just gotta hold on. And so Locke and Shepard sat in front of me, and I sat behind them. It's super loud. They give you earplugs. Oh, we didn't wear them because we're in Florida. We'll lose our hearing. It's fine. And then it's super loud. But he's like, man, he's lived there all his life, and he's explaining. I'm like, so you guys have like, first of all, we're gonna see some gators. He was like, yes, we're gonna see some gators, and we did. And he was like, they're active at this time of the day. It's mating season, so we probably saw
gators mating.
12 alligators. Just
Okay.
in the wild, some really big ones. And then he was explaining, we said, have you ever seen a mating? It was like, just the other day, they were mating when I showed up, and they rolled into the water. We didn't get to see any gator sex as much as I wanted. I think they charge extra if you see that. It's like a little retroactive thing. But then-
It's like putting a foot into a gator boot.
and then, but I'm asking him I'm just kind of noticing that it's all water. I mean, yes, it's like 2 feet of water, and there's a whole, it looks like land, but I can kind of tell that it's all water. There's no like land.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, yeah, the bottom half of the Everglades is 600 square miles. Not as big as Jacksonville. Maybe it's 6,000 square miles. That makes more sense.
Oh, so you didn't have any of like the cypress trees or whatever. Those
Right,
trees
he
are.
says that's the land that's gonna have some trees and stuff is further north. And he says, and that's where all those invasive pythons are, the ones that have like taken over the whole Everglades because of people letting their snakes out, their pet snakes. He said, I've only seen one down here ever because they want some land. But then he likes telling us about the history of this area, because there's also this invasive species of bird. He was like, yeah, like in the 90s, there was a hurricane, and this bird that's from another place in the world got out from some zoo, and now they all live around there, and the gators love to eat them. And so like, it's just cool to see like the ecosystem and how screwed it up it is.
Were there paths or, because there was like reeds everywhere,
so
but paths,
we
right?
were going through some obviously natural sort of canals, but there was one really long straight canal. I was like, now this isn't natural, right? He says, no, actually 100 years ago or so, the Army Corps of Engineers decided that they were going to drain this and put cows here. And so they put the cows out here, and it was an absolute disaster because it was like super muddy, and they couldn't keep pumping the water out. And so then they just let it fill back up. But one of the things that happened is there are these little tiny pockets of land, like I'm talking like big enough to put a house on, that people could come out and claim. So he took us to this island, and there was this island that we didn't go on, like we rode up to it. And it was this house on this island.
What?
With this giant Trump flag, of course. Like, this is Trump country. And this guy has just set up he lives out there full time.
Off the grid, no power, of course.
Off the grid, he has his own, like, I think he's got solar panels or something. But like, he's just his land. Because like you could, at some point in the past, you could just claim it and they got grandfathered in and never had to pay for it. And so he's like, yeah, this guy is like 70 years old. He's retired. He lives out here. And he bought a fan boat from us, from the place that I got the fan boats. And so he has his transportation on his own fan boat that he goes back and forth on the land, just living out
Completely
there.
isolated.
And getting surrounded by alligators, by the way. Surrounded by them.
Wow.
It's wild, man.
So if we had to do it again, you'd be up to go to like the northern Everglades because it's a different experience.
Yeah.
Where the woods are.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also do that again. I mean, I don't know. I may be going back to Miami a lot. Locke hasn't made a decision about school, but that was the final destination, was to tour the school, and he's interested in Miami, which we toured, and it was beautiful. But the last piece of the trip here is, so that night we went to Miami Beach, which again, if you remember the geography of Miami, there's a pretty giant downtown that's on the coast, right? And then there's an island that is out from the coast, which is where the real beach is. And that's like where we stayed at the Fontainebleau and stuff like that when we did that event.
Okay, yeah.
And that's where like the beach is, because there's not much beach at all, because it's pretty much mangroves that come all the way down to the water in most places. So there's not really a shoreline, except like a traditional beach, except Miami Beach has a heck of a beach. So that's where we went, when we stayed in Miami Beach. And we did the night swimming.
Yeah.
So night swimming was on the agenda.
Oh.
Now, we ate some incredible food. Miami has the food is so good. We ate at this it was like Cuban Peruvian fusion or something. I don't know what it was, man, but it was unbelievable. It may have been my favorite meal of the whole trip. I mean, the food on this trip, I just love eating so much. I should have a show on Food Network.
So Miami, enjoy it while you can before it all goes underwater.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking when I see it. I'm like, man, this is not going to be around, but it's around now. And we go to the beach, and I was like, guys, one of the best experiences of my life is night swimming. And one of their favorite songs is night swimming. We have songs that are like tied to everything, and the boys, so I'm like.
REM?
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, we go down there. Now, I don't remember what time of year it was when we night swam with Stevie and Ben and Alex, and not Alex Punch, but Alex Alexandrov.
Yeah.
But it was hot.
It was hot.
And the water felt like a bath, and you couldn't tell the difference in the temperature between the air and the water. Not so much the case in early April when we were there. So Locke was scared of sharks, and it didn't feel great. It felt great outside of the water, but it was kind of a little chilly, like when the bath's a little bit too cold kind of situation.
Okay.
But I was like, you guys have to get in and sing at least the first verse and chorus of Night Swimming and then get out. So they did that. And then that was the last, so what we were supposed to do, night swim, then go stay in our hotel, then tour the campus. Couldn't get an official tour, but this campus was an open campus, so we could tour it anyway. Official tours were like booked or not available on a Saturday. But there was a convergence of events, and that is that we knew that Carolina and Duke were playing each other in the Final Four.
That night,
Saturday night, and this is the night that we're supposed to come back, and I bought these flights a long time ago. Now I'm super conflicted because I'm an NC State grad. I do not like Carolina. I do not like Duke. I do not like Carolina more than I do not like Duke. But this is like watching, as I said on Twitter, the two popular bullies in school fight. It's like, I don't like either one of them, but I'm showing up for the fight.
Yeah, even I watched it.
Right. And if you don't have any context for this, I mean, this was the most important college basketball game in the history of college basketball, because this is what might be the biggest sports rivalry. I think it was actually voted the biggest sports rivalry over the Red Sox and the Yankees by Sports Illustrated back in the day. I don't know about that, but it is for us the biggest thing. And they were gonna be playing literally at the same time that we were on the plane and getting off of a plane and getting onto another plane. And I was like, Locke is a huge fan of basketball and he really wants to watch this game. I'm a huge fan of basketball and kind of want to begrudgingly watch this game.
So you pulled an Eric Church.
I changed the flight. I was like, we're gonna watch this and we're gonna fly out in the morning. So yeah, we didn't have quite the repercussions of Eric Church's. Barbara, quit scratching over there. What are you doing? Why you gotta be a troublemaker? Why can't you be like Jade and just sit in my lap the whole time? So we changed the flight. We watched the game. We watched the first game, whatever the first game was. I've already forgotten it. It was Kansas and whoever they beat.
Can't remember.
And watched that first game in a bar. And then we were like, the second game, we're gonna watch it in the comfort of our hotel room so we can get as loud as we want, even though we're not really, Locke was pulling for Carolina.
You were
because
you
hasn't.
better be pulling for Duke.
So it's a very interesting thing had happened to me, and I talked about this
I saw your
on Twitter.
tweets. I was like, what's going on here?
Well, here's the thing. I've lost some of my, I think that one of the things is I for many years now, I've been able to step outside of the real passion and emotion that I have around sports and understand that it is fake passion. That it is the way I feel about sports and the competitiveness of like if NC State's playing somebody, the way I feel, like my brain and my body doesn't know the difference between a life or death situation and NC State sports. Do you understand that? That's what sports is like for someone who really cares about it.
Yep.
And I understand from an outsider perspective, that seems crazy because it is definitively crazy to care that much to the point that years are coming off your life. You're doing things that are bad for your health. Maybe getting yourself into a situation where violence happens because to other people or maybe to a wall because you care so much about this stuff. And something about being in LA and also my life filling up with so many other things that like, I'm just like, I still care about this, but it's really hard to get passionate about NC State athletics when it tends to be just a marathon or a merry-go-round of disappointment a lot of times, right? So, and especially when it comes to basketball and you live in the shadow of Duke and Carolina. All these people in my family go to Carolina. My wife went to Carolina. My brother goes to Carolina. My nephew goes to Carolina. Locke wanted to go to Carolina, but he's not. And I was also like, I want to see Coach K go out with a win because I used to be a Duke fan when I was in high school for no other reason than I just like picked a team because they were good. And I was like, I'd like to see Coach K go out with a win. But then you just kind of look at this hobbling North Carolina team where they've got 7 guys who play. They got this new coach, Hubert Davis, who I like as a person. They're playing hurt. They're an 8 seed. It's just like, it was hard not to pull for them. But in the end, I got to a place where I was literally 100% indifferent to the outcome, but still nervous at the same time. Like had this weird anxious energy watching it. And I was like, if Carolina wins this game, it'll be crazy. If Coach K wins this game, it'll be fitting and like he'll go out on a high note. And so in the end, when Carolina won, I just kind of felt just an empty nothingness. And I was like, I changed my flight for nothingness. I altered my entire schedule. I paid extra money so I can watch an emotionally just non-gratifying, you know what I'm saying? It was just such a weird thing. I was like, I'm so glad I watched this historic game, but I got nothing from it. It was like eating a burger that's made out of newspaper.
Oh.
That's
well, I don't want you
like.
to end your entire trip account on that front. I mean,
well,
why don't you end on something
That
else?
was the end of the trip. But let me just say, we had an incredible time. Some of the, I've already gone for an hour and a half, but some of the conversations that we got into, like we got so tickled, like there now, like with Shepard being 13, the nature of the conversations and the funny things that we talk about and the way that we make each other laugh, it's just, I really value that time that I had with them. We just have a good time together.
You're on a 13-year-old level.
Yeah, yes. Right. It's like we're all now on the same level. And so, boy, we just talked about so much weird, philosophical, existential, funny stuff. And just, you know, they're both very passionate and have a bunch of opinions about everything, just like somebody they're related to, or two people they're related to. And I just had the best time. And Locke and I, the funny thing is Locke and I had such a great time. And then the very first night when Shepard shows up, Locke's like, Shepard was doing something like he was getting in the shower and he like left something. I was like, don't do that with the towel. And Locke was like, Shepard, don't screw up our system. Dad and I have a system that we have established and you can't be messing up the system. I was like, I'm proud of him. I didn't even tell him it was a system, but he picked up on the fact that we had a system. We were in a rhythm.
You used the top half of the towel, he uses the bottom half to dry?
Yep. Well, usually there's two. But yeah, Shepard was invading on the system a little bit, but he eventually fell in line. And,
well, I'm glad you guys had that. You know, it's something you'll never forget. And if you do, just listen to this podcast.
And that is the thing I was thinking about as I'm experiencing something like a trip like this. I'm like, man, there's an impulse to write it all down because, you know, you take pictures, you take video, but you want to encapsulate the whole thing.
Well, you know what? Hold that thought. Because I think there's a lot there that I do want to unpack. And there's something that I've experienced that I hinted to you a little bit that I think leads to an entirely different podcast that I think you should re-access that. So
okay.
Let's put a pin in that.
But that's why I didn't write it down because I was like, I'm going to talk about it for an hour and a half in great detail. Somebody just needs to transcript it so I can read it as an old man.
Let's just post it online.
Yeah, let's do that.
As
we'll just release this as a
and
podcast.
Video.
Again, my rec, Miami by Keith Whitley. And Keith Whitley as a general recommendation, just a guy who was doing some very special, specific country in the time that he was alive.
In the 80s.
In the 80s, and then he passed away in 1989. And did you know that he actually had he and Ricky Skaggs were in a bluegrass act together, and if you listen to Keith Whitley eventually on Spotify, because he doesn't have that many hits because he didn't sing for that long, you get down to the album where he and Ricky Skaggs did, and his voice is completely different. It doesn't sound like Keith Whitley at all.
That's strange.
It just sounds like a dude singing bluegrass. Barbara wasn't with us.
Say goodbye, Barbara.
Bye-bye.
Hashtag Ear Biscuits. We'll see you next week. To watch more Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist on the right.
To watch the previous episode of Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist to the left.
And don't forget to click on the circular icon to subscribe.
If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for being your mythical best.